Well, anytime you're starting, anytime you want to build something from scratch, especially something that's never been done,
Right.
there are a lot of components that you have to first identify, right? You have to got to identify all the components. And by the way, no one's ever successful at identifying all the components necessary to build anything from day one, right? You don't sit down with a notepad. I'm going to need all these things. Some of them come up as you're going through them, but you do have a sort of a high level idea as to what components you're going to need.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Adam Sharif has over 25 years of commercial real estate development and finance. He's also a serial entrepreneur with nxtCRE. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Adam. The pleasure is mine. There are 3 questions I ask every guest on the show in 90 seconds or less. Can you tell me, where did you start? Where are you now? And how did you get
there? In this business, commercial real estate, started out as an investment broker, sales broker. I went on to become a lender with, at that time, the largest commercial real estate lender in the nation, and moved on to become a developer. Acquired assets, acquired REITs, and developed properties in 3 different states, and eventually launched nxtCRE about almost 3 years ago, maybe a little more than 3 years, about 3 years ago.
That's a lot of different hats that you've worn here in the commercial real estate industry. Investment broker, lender, to a developer. What were as you went through those iterations, what were kind of the things that drove you to those different positions?
Sometimes you don't know, you're driven towards something, right? You're drawn towards something, but you don't know exactly what it is. But when you reflect back on it, to me, it's always been creating something new, creating something that hasn't been done before, something that excites people. What I do is, I'm from Chicago. I spent 30 years of my life in Chicago, and I remember the saying from Daniel Burnham, make no small plans, they do not inspire the hearts of men. Well, that's actually paraphrasing what he really did say, but sounds better paraphrased than the actual words he used. But the point being that I've always wanted to make a difference, create something along the way. I've never been very good at taking something that was handed down to me and say, hey, go manage it, that sort of stuff. I've never been really particularly good at that sort of stuff, but I've been pretty good at building things, and that's what drives me more than anything else.
Got it. So you went through each of these iterative process or iterative, roles, if you will, and said, all right, I want to build something, I want to do something new. I know this is a short show, so I really want to spend as much time as we possibly can seeing or finding out what void you saw in the market and how nxtCRE fills. Maybe if you can, just use Springboard to talk a little bit about the kind of genesis of nxtCRE, what you saw in the market, where you're taking it, all of those.
I consider my background to be commercial real estate finance, because that's really, I was the investment broker, but commercial real estate finance part of my career was the foundation for what we're doing today. I used to run the equities transaction group for GMAC Commercial Mortgage. I was a member of the senior management committee, and we had over $300 billion of commercial real estate loan portfolio, and every year about 20% of that loan portfolio would run off, and we would be a portion of that would be refinanced, the other portion would be paid off due to a sale, and we were really good at identifying those refinancing opportunities. But that refinancing opportunities only represented about 25% of the runoff. The other 75% was due to a sale. So I asked one of our people, what's going on here with these 75% of the people paying off their loans and not refinancing? Obviously they're selling, but there's a capital event going on. What could we do? What's in it for us? How do we find out the opportunities that exist? And the answer was, we don't care. They're not refinancing. So we don't track that. I'm like, well, I run the equity transaction group. There's this capital event going on. There's a ton of equity that's changing hand here. Let's find out more about it, because there's got to be opportunities. And so we started doing research and start calling some of those folks that were selling their property, paying off their loan by selling their property, and asked them what their plans were. Found out about 2/3 of them will be reinvesting the proceeds from the sale to buy another property. And we asked them, hey, would you be interested in seeing opportunities from some of our other borrowers who are interested in selling? And the answer was, of course, yes, because, well, you've got this giant portfolio with tens of thousands of borrowers, and some of them are gonna want to sell without putting a property on the marketplace. Some of them may be distressed. So yeah, any opportunities you got, we'll be more than happy to take a look at it, because we want to see everything that's in the marketplace, right? If you're investing, if you want to buy something, you want to make sure that you have access to every opportunity. These people had to invest. They were taking advantage of the 1031 exchange law. So we didn't call them that then, but we call them now must-buy investors. But so we went to our other borrowers, asked them if they were interested in selling to our 1031 exchange borrowers, and the answer, of course, was absolutely yes. They have the cash on hand, short time to make a decision, and because they were investing money that otherwise would go to various taxing authorities, they wanted deliverability of an asset was much more valuable to them than to make it a deal of the century, if you will, right? So for every seller wants to sell to these folks. The problem was the business was too good. We couldn't really handle the volume we had. We had phone, fax, and FedEx as most often used source of communication back then. And given the time constraint, there just wasn't enough, right? So I had to hire, in my mind, over 100 people just to handle that kind of volume, and I had no interest in doing that. So we left and became a developer and all that sort of stuff. And then about 3 years ago, so I looked to the market and see what technology was doing to commercial real estate, and realized that with the communication capabilities, the digital communication capabilities we had today versus the analog we had, back then, we could close many of the gaps we had in exchanging information. So based on that, and I knew that model itself was going to be very successful. Based on that, we created nxtCRE.
So nxtCRE fills that void where you're matching up must-buy invest with sellers that want to sell, but not in the open market, more of a behind, not closed doors, but it's something where you guys find them kind of private opportunities we find, or am I missing?
That's part of it, but not anyone that has a property they want to sell, we can access our must-buy investors. And if you want to sell your property, you want to sell to these people more than anyone else, right? They have to make a deal. They're motivated as much as you're motivated to sell, and they have a very short time to make a decision. So you want to sell to them. So it's not just off-market or distressed opportunities our lenders have, but also any regular listing that you want to sell. So it's available to everyone who's looking for equity investors or looking to sell their property.
Got it. How I would imagine, because when you were referring back to the analog day, that you had you kind of a front row seat to the data of people that were refinancing, that were selling, that were getting a large capital event. How have you found an effective way to scale and access that data now, if you're not necessarily?
Great question, and it's really the linchpin, our secret sauce, right? So I'm no longer with GMAC. I'm no longer a member of the senior management committee. I no longer run the equities transaction group. In fact, there's no more GMAC anyway. So we had to devise a plan. We had to create a strategy on partnering with commercial real estate lenders, and that's really our secret sauce. And now we have partnership with commercial real estate lenders across the nation, from LA to Miami, New York, Detroit, Chicago, and on and on. And these partnership allows us access to those borrowers who are selling their property and planning on reinvesting the proceeds to buy another property. So instead of having one giant lender that I had captive access to, now we have many commercial real estate lenders who are partnering with us. So the benefit to them, of course, is they gain a line of sight to what their own borrowers are going to be doing next. Something that does not exist today. Lenders do not have a digital line of sight today as to what their borrowers are going to do once they pay off their loan by a sale. Refinancing is different, right? That you got 2 years and a half before the loan matures. You're calling the borrower, you're asking them about their plans. You want to be there for them when they refinance. But once they sell the property, the lender loses digital line of sight as to what that borrower will do next. And that's the problem we saw. It took a while to get that message straightened out, because initially our message was, the byproduct of that partnership. It was, as we started out today, we talked about how we help sellers access must-buy investors. That was our original message. We found out that was not an effective message because that was just a byproduct of what we're doing. What we were really doing was giving commercial real estate lenders line of sight as to what their own customers were doing, and then profiting from those events. So that's really what we do, and our messaging today is, I think it's much better today than it was when we first started out.
Right, because you're selling a lot of different people on various aspects of what you do and why it benefits each of them uniquely, from the buyer to the seller. Len called it line of sight. Why do you think it's taken this long for this product to kind of come to the market? Because it sounds like you developed something that relatively new. Obviously, the need has been there a long time, but why is now a good time for what it is?
There are a couple of things about commercial real estate. I think, I don't know if it's overused, but I've heard it said again and again and again how inefficient the market is, how backward commercial real estate or real estate generally is versus any other asset class in terms of employing technology, right? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is there's a lot of silos within commercial real estate. There's, there are investment brokers, and then there's that, and their personalities don't always clash. There's a caste system, if you will, and I don't want to get too deep into the psychology of how these people all work, but the mortgage bankers are in the business of providing funding for properties. That's what they do. And when they start seeing refinancing opportunities, that's much more attractive for them to chase than try and figure out what someone's going to do in the future, because they don't necessarily have the tools to help them with those future needs anyway. So they don't bother with them. They don't do anything with that. So that's what we change. Our technology allows us to change that. And now commercial real estate lenders don't need to have the infrastructure to take listing and sell their property. They don't have it. They don't need to create it now, because with us, we provide that capability for them.
That's really, really cool. When I think about some of the, I guess there's two kind of segments here I want to touch on. One here about the things you feel like you've done really well. Start there. What are some things maybe you feel like you've done really well inside of, let's just talk specifically about nxtCRE, growing this business, and then maybe what are some things like have been kind of...
Well, anytime you want to build something from scratch, especially something that's never been done, there are a lot of components that you have to first identify, right? You have to identify all the components. And by the way, no one's ever successful at identifying all the components necessary to build anything from day one, right? You don't sit down with a notepad, I'm going to need all these things. Some of them come up as you're going through them, but you do have a sort of a high level idea as to what components you're going to need. And to do that, you have and identifying components are just one of the things you need to build it. But now you've got to find the people to put those components together, the team, right? And to me, that is the most important part of a startup. Your team will make or break you, and the people on your team and their motivation and their belief and the company's ability to execute is the most important part of building something from scratch. So I think I'm very proud of the team we've built, and they're a fantastic group of people. From Ken Greggs, who's most senior member of our team in terms of being with us, in terms of being with nxtCRE, and he's done an amazing job in signing lenders across the nation. He himself ran his own lending platform that he sold, and he had over $4 billion in loan servicing, and once close to it, and once that was sold, he joined our team, and with that we gained wealth of experience and relationship, because Ken was also a member of board of governors of the MBA, which is Mortgage Bankers Association. He was also the president of Oregon MBA. So he came in with tremendous amount of relationships and experience, and he is very well regarded. So bringing people like that on your team is a critically important part of the success that we have had.
I love that. On that topic, what do you feel like has been your secret sauce for hiring, motivating, or selling the vision to that top talent?
Wow, that's a great question. I think it has to boil down to that person's confidence in my ability to execute, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great the idea is. It doesn't matter how great the concept is, right? It gets down to, okay, all right, this sounds great, but are you the guy? Can you execute? Are you able to bring in the resources necessary to get it done? That sort of stuff. And look, to be honest with you, I wondered if I was that person myself, along the way, right? You wonder, can you do this? But I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking like that because I just don't. I think about always from point A to point B. How do I get there? I know that I got to get to Z, but I don't worry about getting to Z. I worry about getting to B and then work my way to C and D and so forth, if you will. Too many people I've ran into in business always are thinking about, okay, but what's the end game? And I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, that's just the dumbest question. For instance, I've asked, well, what's your exit? What do you, are you going to do an IPO? And are you going to, and I'm like, oh, you got to be out of your mind. Let's build this. Let's bring the team together. Let's do some of these other things first. Let's first prove the concept and all that. All those other things will take care of themselves. If you're wildly successful, you'll have many options. If you're not, none of those options that I want to do are going to be available to me anyway. So let's focus on building the next step, get the foundation down right before we start thinking about the furniture that we're going to have inside the house.
No, I love that. That's sound advice. We'll just stay on this topic here for just one more second. But when it came to finding and acquiring that top talent, were there strategies that you used? Was it just farming your own network, or what did you do to go out there and find the right
questions? And answer to both of them is yes. You go through your list of people and you go, like Ken Gregg's, for instance. I identified lenders I wanted to target, and part of that was based on certain relationships I had, and then LinkedIn, by the way, is an amazing tool, right? So I found Ken working for one of the lenders I wanted to target, right? And I didn't know Ken. Ken had never heard of me, and he wasn't the only one. There were several, right? So I reached out to all of them, but Ken is the one that responded in a way that was very encouraging. He wasn't. He seemed helpful. He seemed like the kind of person that you can go to, and he would be open to providing advice, and he'd be open to hearing what you had to say and that sort of stuff. So and then of course we bought Don Stevens. Don Stevens is a guy I've known for 20 years. I used to be one of his customers. He's a mortgage banker. And then there's Stacy Berger, who everyone in the commercial real estate world knows. He built the PNC loan servicing from nothing to $700 billion. He was a guy on my target list, someone I wanted desperately to get on my team. I didn't know him, but I knew other people that did know him and asked for introduction. And he's now a very valuable member of our advisory team. So it's a combination of all those things. There's no one thing that I can point to and say that's it.
No, but I love the future kind of vision casting, going, okay, if we're going to do this, got to have the right people on the team to do it. Then going after that avatar will of person to help take it down. I think so often we as entrepreneurs get stuck doing as opposed to about building our team early on so that we can then. So I love kind of the way that you've built all of your businesses, but also nxtCRE. Tell me this, and I know we're at 21 minutes, I think right now, so maybe we'll go a couple minutes over on this episode, but just quickly, if our listeners wanted to engage with nxtCRE, is there a size of transaction that they need to have to bring and put on the platform? Is there what are some considerations that somebody should have as they think about the possibility of working?
Great question. Commercial real estate, most buy investors who are 1031 exchange buyers, they mirror the U.S. commercial real estate investors in general, right? They buy everything. They sell everything you can imagine, and the price range, of course, mirrors the U.S. investment sales profile. It can be as you know, it can be in 9 figures, and it can be 6 figures. But the average sale is around 6.5 million. That's the average, but that's also the U.S. Average sales profile as well, about 6 million for investment properties. So anyone that wants access to the most desirable investors in the marketplace, anyone who's looking to raise equity from the most desirable equity providers, if you will benefit from finding them on nxtCRE. Will benefit from going to nxtCRE and identifying and getting matched with them. We're a lot like dating sites, if you will. Everything is our must-buy investors on our site are anonymous. You don't get to see their name or contact information, but you do get to see the amount of equity they have and amount of days till the selection deadline. And if you're matched with them, they will tell you, that they want a property where your property is located. They want a property that's like your property, let's say it's a multifamily. They want it in your price range. So all those things are matched like a dating site. The 2 other things you want to see as someone who wants to sell a property is number of days till the selection deadline, because that's a really key point, and amount of available equity they have for the next transaction. Based on that, you decide to send your property to them, and then they decide if they like it, and they will respond to it.
That's really, really cool. Adam, I love what you've built. I look forward to checking it out here myself. If our listeners want to get on the nxtCRE platform or check it out for themselves, what is the best?
Well, nxtCRE.com, nxtCRE.com is our website. They can go on it and find out as much as they need on our website. And of course, if they want to connect with us, there's a phone number, and also info@nxtCRE.com. If someone wants to reach me personally, Adam@nxtCRE.com.
Perfect. And that's nxtCRE, nxtCRE.com. Adam, thank you again for coming on the show today. I certainly
thank you, Sam. I'm very appreciative of your time, and thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.